So like we were just talking about, I know you've been doing a lot of travel since the ministry began. Do you think that, with this ministry's scarce resources at the moment, that is the best, use of these resources? And if so, why is that important to you?
This is very important. This is not the issue of resources, because the communication with our diaspora is happening for the first time from the point of view of what we are doing with the new office, because I am the first Minister of State for Diaspora. And during this period we have communicated with our diaspora and to discuss what we are doing for the new strategy that we have for diaspora until 2024 and for the new legislations. For a short period, the Albanian Parliament have passed 3 laws, and of course we need to know sometimes their opinions, their ideas. I know that I can't have all their ideas with 1, 2, 3, 10 meetings, but for me it's important. And the direct communication, and for more is not a travel only for the issue from the point of view of resources, but from the point of view of what we want to do with the relations with our diaspora, and especially to communicate with different level of the administrative level in the states where they are, to have a full understanding about the needs, about the problems, and to create a strong input to the administrative level of the states where our diaspora exists.
And I know from talking to Mark and from Lisa that there has been a history of communication since the ministry has been created, but I know that there's a lot of frustration around the lack of meaningful and regular and formalized communication. One example is on the national diaspora strategy. So why wasn't a working group created before this consultative council in order to regularly collaborate on the national strategy before it was finalized?
No, don't have been closed story. Have been created an interministerial group. Have been published the first draft that was organized open meeting in last year, in December, together with the Prime Minister and the main ministers of the government, and all the draft the strategy have been published and have been discussed with different levels of civil society. But what is more important is that the document that had been passed in Parliament, in the Council of Ministers some weeks ago, is not a closed one. In the action plan of the strategy, measure 71 or 70, we have wrote it that this strategy will be discussed every year in the summit of diaspora. Means it's open document, it's not a closed document, it's a transparent document, it's not something that we have done and now you must accept this document per force. No. In this way, I don't think that we are in the wrong track. In the contrary, my idea is that better to do something with some mistakes. Let's consider the idea that we have done some mistakes, but better to have something and to discuss on this document than to be, in a kind of stagnation and not having nothing, waiting to have ideas and new ideas and not having nothing at the same time. I suppose that the next summit of diaspora will be open discussion with all the representatives of our diaspora to see what will be the best, first of all for them and after for us.
Right. But I think the main complaint that I've heard is that it's one thing to have these meetings, but that they've been somewhat informal and that they haven't been regular, that they haven't been institutionalized. For example, with this, the consultative council law, the law that you had just had approved by the Council of Ministers. Jermaine has a task force that has been working on this for a year, but it seems like you didn't really incorporate their strategy, their recommendations. So why is that?
You have gathered me with Lisa in office, of the chairman of the German group. During these days we will do a press conference, but online, with all the network of the people interested to discuss about this issue. But you must understand that for the first time, Albania and our diaspora will have a council of coordination where they will have, let's say, official representatives that are not the leaders of the Albanian community outside, but are representatives of our diaspora that will be hand to hand with the President of the Republic, with the Prime Minister of the country, with the main ministers and this happened for the first time. There are, let's say, not clear procedures. I will discuss with Germin about that and with the representatives. But you must understand that the level of organization of our community for the moment is in different levels in different countries. But the legislations for such kind of procedures need one procedure for all, and not different procedures in US, different procedure in Canada, different procedure in Europe, and different procedure for Australia. And for this reason, I know that there exist concerns or reserves because it's the first experience that we are doing such a thing. And this kind of things are not a closed debate. In the contrary, main reason that we are doing this is to continue open in debate. We speak about strategy and the action plan, are open documents. We speak about Council of Coordination, are not closed. These procedures are open to be discussed with the community, because in the contrary, this will be a great mistake for us and after for the Albanian community outside of our country. Because all this structure, all this reform is to create a new chapter of the relations between the country, the motherland and fatherland, and the Albanian Kosovo and our Albanian community outside. In the contrary, will be disaster. If we are creating a reform for officials, this will be a great mistake of Albanian government and Albanian institutions.
But I mean, I know that one of the main concerns was that I think they feel that the government has too much say in what members, in the nomination and the confirmation process. Speaking to Mark, I know that he feels that it might be viewed as too politicized, and that I know that one of Jermeen's main goals is for this to be an independent body that is ultimately elected by the diaspora. So why do you think that, why was it decided that you would have the final say, that the government would have more involvement rather than that council being elected?
No. I fully agree. The question, if I understand correct, can we have an independent 100% body from politics in this Council of Coordination of Diaspora? I don't know. Because first of all, Albanians like a lot politics. And we can't say that we have fully independent people inside and outside of Albania. For me, first of all, it is important to create an institution based on law, where the representative of diaspora to be hand-to-hand with the President of the Republic, with the Prime Minister of the country and the ministers, and to discuss the issues of the relations between state and diaspora. And for me, this is the most important. After we came to the second step, names. Sometimes names in this country have destroyed a lot of good things that have been wrote in letter. I know that. But we will be very careful. And this is the reason that I told you that we will have an open communication with all the representatives of diaspora interested about this issue. That will be with a direct line with them, and we will discuss. The law is flexible. Now that we are speaking, the proposals will come from the embassies. That will go to the Foreign Ministry, and after will come to my office, and the Council of Ministers will decide. If somebody doubt about this, I think that he is right, because the mechanism is too administrative. And the spirit of diaspora don't like this. I know that. But we must be very careful. Don't try to do something good and creating a great problem for the relations between the state and diaspora. I told you, this is a reform not for the state and not for our bureaucracy. This is a reform for diaspora. And this is the reason that I fully understand the concerns, and this is the reason that you get me with Lisa in my office, and our cooperation with Germin and other NGOs that are interested about this issue will be open to discuss. And of course, the transparency of the process will be very important, and will be not under the eyes of our bureaucracy, but will be under the eyes of the diaspora and our people in diaspora.
So, but you don't think it's necessarily realistic that ultimately this consultative council will be solely elected by the diaspora without any administrative bureaucratic say?
No. It will be a great mistake if we will consider this story a bureaucratic issue. Some names that will come from our embassies, and after will come to the Council of Ministers, and that's all. We'll have a Council of Diaspora. Will be so simple and so ridiculous if we will be will simplify things in such a way. I think that this must be open story for creating a council that will reflect not 100%, but at maximum in the conditions that we are and in the level of organization that exists in our diaspora, let's say communication between their interest and the political interest of our state.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes.
So you're saying that you don't think that it will ever be realistic. I understand that there's some infrastructure issues with it now. There's not necessarily the infrastructure to...
And because of the level of organization of our diaspora, because it's different level of organizations in different countries. And we can't have different procedures for different countries. Because in way or another, this is an administrative procedure. But we must be very careful that these administrative procedures don't prevalate to the interest of our diaspora, for transparency and for having good people to express their interest hand to hand with the President and Prime Minister.
But I mean, it seems like
at least we are not speaking for this government. This is a story that will continue, and after this government and after the elections, that will be when the time will come.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly the concern is, if there is, I mean, obviously there will be turnover from the government, and I think people are worried about the continuity of this diaspora effort and the persistence of the diaspora effort if the government has a hand in all of it, It seems like Germany is at least is organized in a relative way, and I understand that while the first step wouldn't be that the entirety of the diaspora would elect, that their recommendations were to basically preemptively appoint a task force that would then elect a preliminary council, and then ultimately it would develop into that. But again, it maintains the independent body. So you don't plan, it sounds like, to incorporate those recommendations.
Government have two options: to create a simple bureaucratic issue that will not create any impact on the relations with diaspora, or will create, collaborating with the representative of diaspora, at least acceptable body that will be a start for this level of organization, step by step, with better level organization of our diaspora. Of course, that the request will be stronger and stronger, and my dream is that diaspora to be seen like a part of our society that is not here, but in the same time is here with their interest and with their attitudes and what they are doing for their country, and because they are invisible from bureaucratic point of view.
Okay, so I know that, you kind of mentioned it, but I know that there's some major concerns based on a Harvard survey, at least among the U.S. diaspora, of corruption. And that doesn't necessarily exist for this government in isolation, but of any Albanian government.
Listen, we have a student here from Harvard, from Lebanon, that is doing her internship, and she's very useful and very smart. And our offices are open for you for any kind of request that you'll have.
Right, but not so much that I was going to ask that, but I just think I know that is a major concern that keeps people from investing.
You speak generally for the atmosphere.
I speak generally. The atmosphere is one of apprehension. People are, anxious to invest, and I know that at least it's been said that is something that you have focused on in your travels. But some would argue that the diaspora shouldn't be treated any differently in that.
Yesterday you have been in Parliament, and yesterday we passed the law of the development fund of diaspora. One of the first job that this fund will do is to help the creation of a commerce chamber of diaspora. We have discussed with the network of businessmen, of Albanian businessmen that are in diaspora, and I think that they must be genuine in their interest in Albania. The idea is to create 3 chambers of business of our diaspora in Tirana, Pristina, and Skopje. And I think that this is very important. Because diaspora have a view that sometimes don't exist in our administrative point of views. And I suppose that this will be a successful story, but step by step. There are doubts, there are ideas that things will not function. My answer is yes. I'm not here to say everything is okay, we are in the right track, because we are doing this for the first time. We are trying to function based on some model that exists, but in the same time, the vacuum of our experience create problems. And the relations with our diaspora create some doubts. What will be the consequence? How things will function? How the money will be spent? How, I know. We have a lot of questions, but we have only one supporter, transparency. And being open with our people. In the contrary, we'll create a bureaucratic story, and that's all.
All right, I know you gotta run soon, but I have 2 more questions. Are there any, at this moment, educational or professional exchange programs in the works at this moment?
You mean with?
For diaspora.
We are working to create new experience or new contract with, we call it School Me project. Is idea of learning students, especially kids, in distance. And another project is for e-book, and for this reason we will create a center of publishing for diaspora, especially for that. But yet we are in the first steps. And understand me, my reservation to don't explain more details about that, because we are negotiating and with other ministries that because I need their support. We are creating a new building, I mean, for inside of a traditional field with all the rules, and for this I need to be, I mean, positive and doing things step by step.
And so I know that for your budget, there's just like a section that says operations. I'm just wondering if you could give me like a more detailed breakdown of what that section of your budget has been used for so far.
The Minister of State of Diaspora don't have a budget. The budget of the Minister of State function based on in the name of the Office of the Prime Minister.
But we have a budget that says, I think, Agency of Diaspora and Migration. Is that not referring to your office?
In this budget, have been passed for the agency only the fund for salaries. But this budget don't yet have been functional.
Exactly,
means
has been funded
yet
this.
We don't have started to spend the money that are in the budget for the agency.
Okay, I understand. But so then what has been funding, for example, like your travel so far?
My travel is paid from the budget of the Prime Minister office.
All right, so I think like just to reinforce, one question, because I think this is like the main concern and the main, the main point, I guess, of this entire story that we're working on is, do you plan in the future to have more institutionalized, formalized consultation with Jermaine or other members of the diaspora rather than more informal meetings?
Can you imagine Lisa to be uninformed for the reform? You know Lisa and Germin. They are unbelievable people, and I love to work with them. And I'm repeating, I want to do reform, not to write a bureaucratic story in some letters. It would be a great failure if we will be focused only on letters. We are working with human beings, with people. And if we have understanding of them, we'll be successful.